knows what. Anyway, the standard I'd like to talk to you all about today, which we use in Joint Venture Mastermind, is early is on time and on time is late. And it's really about timekeeping, and it sounds so basic. And just to give it some context, the stuff that we do in Joint Venture, hey Tom, how you doing? The stuff that we do in Joint Venture Mastermind is not hard, it's not complex, it's simple, but it's not easy to do. And one of the standards that we keep to, and we've got 23 in all, one of the main standards that we keep to, one of the first ones that we do is about timekeeping. Hey Vicky, and it's just a really interesting one to presence, because you kind of figure that we kind of know timekeeping when we become adults. It's one of those things that like no one really we talk about, but we don't really hold people to a higher standard. And so I have a question for you when you're watching this, and I'd like you to answer this for yourself. And there's no judgment, there's nothing. It's just about exploration, and that's what we do. We explore who we are, how we show up, where we're successful, where we're not successful, possibly reasons why we're not successful, and we have a look, and then we change things that don't work. And one of the things is timekeeping. So the question is this: the meeting starts at 10 a.m. and I'm going to give you a multiple choice answer, and you get to pick for yourself, and no one's going to know what your answer is for you. You get to pick for yourself what your answer is. So A is you get there 10 minutes before the meeting starts. So you get there at 9:50, you get time to take your coat off, make a cup of tea, prepare yourself mentally for the meeting, and at 10 o'clock the meeting starts. So that's answer A. B is you walk in at 10 o'clock, you're technically on time because it's 10 o'clock and you're there, right? But you're taking off your coat and you're kind of wishing that you had a cup of tea as the meeting starts, so you probably can't get one. C is it's 10 past 10 and you're rushing in, apologising to everyone about all the reasons that made you late and all the excuses, and kind of just, almost making it worse. Instead of just coming in saying I'm late and sitting down, just, coming up with all these reasons why you were late. And D is meeting. What meeting? So you're either an A person who shows up, which is where we like to sit in Joint Venture Mastermind. We like to show up a good few minutes, like even when we have a Zoom call, which we have weekly in our groups. Hey Stephanie, good morning. We all show up like 5 minutes early, so everyone's waiting in the waiting room, and then we start at the time that we say it's starting. We don't arrive at the time that we say the meeting's starting. And some of you may be watching this, especially those of you who come in at the time the meeting starts, or just after, going, oh really? You know, do we have to, like, is that not a bit anal? Are you not being a bit pedantic? But imagine this. When I hold a Zoom call or any kind of meeting, and there's say 10 people in one of my groups, or two groups in one meeting, if one person is just 5 minutes late, that's kept 10 people waiting for 5 minutes to get started. That's 50 minutes of people's real precious time, and nobody gets time back. And it's really disruptive. It's like we don't get started, no one's in the flow. The other thing is, when people show up later than the time that started, they're also not mentally prepared. They're still unpacking their heads from the car or from the journey or from whatever happened that morning. They're not actually, hello Daisy, they're not actually in the room. They're not in the room prepared. And my invitation to all of you is to show up and be prepared and show up on time, which in Joint Venture Mastermind's case and all the people that work with me cases, we actually show up early to be on time. And then when we start a meeting, it's like, boom, we're straight in there, straight into the content, straight into what's going on. And also, everyone's being is more relaxed because everyone's actually in the room. We're not still rushing from wherever we've gone. We're not thinking, oh, I wish we'd arrived earlier so that I could have a cup of tea. We're not worrying about what just happened in the car park that didn't get us our space on time. We're in the room and we're focusing on what there is to focus on. And if you look in our whole lives, if we showed up that way, and it doesn't matter whether that be sitting down and drinking the cup of tea that you made yourself and no one else is around, or getting to the kids' school on time, or showing up for a meeting. If you actually ran your life where you showed up with time to get prepped for what you're about to do, you would just have so much more presence, right? And if you're present, then you're not stressed. And if you're not stressed, you're not living in fight, flight, freeze or fawn. And if you're not living in those, then you're not dealing with massive rushes of cortisol and stress hormones and all the rest of it. And actually you feel better. And then when you do all of that, you sleep better. You're a nicer person to be around. Like the whole world just works. Like it really does. And that's why it's so important. Because actually it sets up your whole way of being for everything. If you show up, take a deep breath, make yourself a cup of tea, consider what it is you want to say in said meeting or picking up the kids from school or whatever your thing is, whatever you're going to be on time for, which again, like I said, is showing up a bit early. The whole world works. And all of the stuff that rushing and being late causes, it just doesn't happen anymore. And I'm speaking as someone who, I literally used to rush, and now I'd rather, like if I'm catching a plane, I'd rather get there 2 hours early and sit and read my book. Because it just feels nice. Hey Cleo, how you doing? It just feels good when you're not rushing. And I guess the final thought to leave you with, because this standard's a real funny one at the moment where everyone's in lockdown and, there's stuff going on and it's kind of tempting. We were talking about dressing for success last week. It's kind of tempting to live in your pajamas and get up late. We even joked this morning how Owen and I were waking up later because we don't have to go to places. Cool, Cleo. But actually we still make sure, we've got stuff going on and we're showing up, and the stuff that you do need to show up. Hey, Ben. Oh, I miss India and seeing you guys. Maybe we can come to London when all this is over. But yeah, I just invite you to take an inventory of how you show up, and also an inventory. So there's a second part to this, just to get a little bit more technical, and we call it the Shanghai part of the standard, because one of my clients, we just use this as an example. We were talking about how most people don't miss a plane to go on holiday. We generally make that, right? But we don't, thanks Ben, we don't make other stuff. We're late for our family and our friends, so it's also to take an inventory of who are you late for and who are you not late for? Who do you deem as important and who holds you to a higher standard and who don't you? And my invitation is hold yourself to that high standard with everyone and really make sure that they get that they matter. And I work on this myself, right? This is an ongoing thing. This isn't just you decide once that you're going to do it and that's it. It's an ongoing thing of deciding how you're going to be in life. So not only is it having a look and figuring where you are on the time scale, it's also having a look and seeing where you let it slide and where you don't. And where do you let other people slide? Where do you let other people kind of be late for you and impact on your day? And an invitation to hold them to a higher standard. And the minute that we all hold each other to a higher standard, the whole world shows up in a different way. So it's kind of a complex subject when you think about it. When I start talking, I think, oh, this is so simple, it's so basic. Why would anyone want to hear this? But actually, when we start looking and we start delving in, it's massive. It gives us how we feel, it gives us the hormones that are released, it gives us how everyone around us pathologically late, brilliant, Vin, exactly, right? And it does cause stress. It's killer. And it's not just the stress for like us who are late, it's stressful for the people who were late too, because then we knock on into their day and what happens with them. It's such an important subject. And again, this stuff is simple, but it ain't easy. So I leave you all with the thought of considering how you do timekeeping and how you could improve it. And I wish you a beautiful day, and I hope you have as nicer oak trees and sunshine as we've got here. And if you don't, try and find some, because that's super cool. Big love, everyone. If you found this useful, please share it. Please send it to someone who you want to tell to be on time, but you don't quite know how to use the words. Send them this video. And really, for those of you who enjoy Venture Mastermind who are working with me already, this is the reminder. This is the, oh yes, I forgot about that standard. I've let that slide. Let's do this one again. Let's remind ourselves, especially with everything that's going on. Let's keep going. Big love, everyone. Bye.